Hello everybody, I am Sig Trent, game designer, co-creator of Everyday Heroes and Old School Class Clown for Sig Trent Games. I'm going to be updating you on what's going on with Sig Trent Games this week 29 of our operations. I will offer you some game design advice, and then finally I'll talk a little bit about my week in life and in gaming. So what have we been doing this week at Sig Trent Games? Well, mostly we've been playtesting Shotgun Fantasy. So I had two sessions, one last Wednesday and one on Friday. On Wednesday, we made characters. That went really nicely. Everybody made a character. We kind of walked through it step by step. We had 4 people making characters. It was pretty fun. And that all worked pretty well, and I got some very valuable feedback. And then on Friday, we played level 1 characters in an adventure of mine called the Tomb of Gondor Gay, which is just a little short demo adventure. I actually wrote it for 4th edition originally, but I adapted it for Everyday Heroes and Shotgun Fantasy. Just for this playtest, and that was a lot of fun. I like the story on the adventure, and to be honest, we played through it, and it felt like a session of D&D, which is pretty much what playing pure Shotgun Fantasy characters in a fantasy story should feel like. The rules, of course, aren't exactly the same, but the overall feel of how you do an adventure and how combat plays out is pretty similar. So that was a successful test. I learned a little bit more from the character making test than I did from the playthrough test. And I think that makes sense because the playthrough is going to involve just regular role-playing and combat, as where making characters is just intimately involved with the mechanics and the book itself and the text, and so you're going to get a little bit more direct feedback. And that's one of the reasons that a lot of the surveys that I've got out there are about making characters, because that's a big way that you're going to interface with the game rules and content itself, as opposed to actually playing the game, which is always going to be dependent upon the game master and the players and the story that you're telling and all that kind of good stuff. But anyway, we didn't find any serious problems, which is great, but I did get a lot of feedback, especially in the magic using characters, so the cleric and the wizard, especially wizard, because that's what at least 2 people made wizards during the playtest. So, and there were questions, also some people made them outside of the playtest. So there were questions about exactly how many spells you get, how you get them, what kind of spells are available to you. Also, it's very possible to make a wizard and not really have anything to do in combat, which is a little bit of a problem. It's okay because there are options that you can do in combat, but there's nothing really guiding players to those options. So I need to do a little bit more work on presentation and maybe making sure that there are more combat spells available at rank 0 that I highlight or automatically assign to characters so that they always at least have something in that direction. One thing I do like to do with Everyday Heroes is make it so it's very hard to build a character that isn't satisfying to play. So I think a little bit more work needs to be done on that. I did do a lot of rewriting and reorganization of the book, and we'll have an updated playtest document probably tomorrow or the next day, depending on when you see this, may already be there. So that is the plan. But so far, so good. We've got more playtests planned for this coming week. Also on Wednesday, we're going to be playing a level 5 scenario. I think I'm going to tap into a little bit of Kong Skull Island stuff, and we're going to port the fantasy characters into Kong Skull Island and do some adventures that involve some modern play interaction, modern setting interaction. And then on Friday, we're going to do level 10, and I don't have a hard plan for that yet, but I need to put it together because Friday isn't very long away from here on Monday. But I'm looking forward to that. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, but I'm going to dig up some scary, crazy, powerful enemies. It'll probably just involve like one big fight. That'll be okay. And we're going to really exercise the spell system, hopefully, and see what shakes loose from that. All right. Those are the major plans. There's a lot of other things going on, but nothing really exciting to talk about. Just a lot of emails going back and forth and planning for the future. All right. Game design tip of the week this week is about adventure pacing tips. So this isn't like everything to do with adventure pacing. It is just some basic tips, and it comes from me having put together this little adventure that I did for the playtests. Also playing some games on the weekend, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And so I just had thoughts about this subject that I wanted to share. All right. First of all, I want to say that like when you're doing an adventure, the opening is really important. How you start out, play. You need to do a lot of thinking about this when it comes to the pacing. Later on, the middle of adventure, pacing is a lot more open. At the end of the venture, then you kind of tighten up again and you want to do certain things. So we're talking mostly about the opening of the adventure and how you transition into the middle part. So you want to set the stage of an adventure rather quickly. You don't want to have huge information dumps right at the beginning of a play session. People are not ready to remember a lot of information. They have no context in which to put that information. So if you start with a giant lore dump about your world and the setting and where you are and all that stuff, it's mostly just going to get lost in the shuffle. So don't do that. What you want to do is establish what kind of world this is. Very basic. Is it a fantasy world? Is it a science fiction world? Is it a world of magic? Lay that out real quick. Set a date and time that you are starting the adventure. It is in the middle of winter, or it is high summer, or whatever it is, and it's 4 o'clock in the morning, or it's 12 midnight, whatever it is that you want to say. Name the place. This is in my case, the adventure we did, the city of Barron's Bridge. I talked just a couple sentences about what Barron's Bridge is. I like to say what the weather is. I don't go into great detail, but it's a cloudy day, or it's a stormy day, or it's a sunny day. And then I launch into what the situation is. Here's where you are. Here's what's going on. Ideally, you want to get all that done in like a couple of minutes, maybe 5 minutes at the most. Reading a big information dump that's really dense with information is a bad idea. Just hit the highlights enough so that people can kind of imagine what's going on and they are not confused, right? That is the goal. And then you get started. So let's move on to the next tip, which is start with the familiar and then move to the unfamiliar. There are exceptions to all these tips, of course, ways that you can do things differently, but I think it's really good to start with the familiar. It is not a bad idea to start a fantasy adventure in a tavern. Everyone kind of understands what a tavern's about. It's a place where people gather and they have drinks and they talk to each other and maybe meetings happen there. So that's perfectly fine. In the modern world, in Everyday Heroes, you might start with characters riding a bus, assuming everyone has ridden on a bus before. Or maybe you're at a Starbucks, or you could be at work in the office. Something that people generally understand and is not super confusing. If you start a game on the elemental plane of fire in Fuzzbutts, fire dispensary, surrounded by, whatever weird things, it's unfamiliar. It's a hard way to start an adventure. People are going to be very confused. Unless, of course, you're playing with players who already know all the background information that they could possibly need and are already familiar with that stuff. But that's a whole different deal. All right, so start with familiar, and then as the story goes on, introduce new unfamiliar elements as you go. Deepen the rabbit hole, go to more strange locations, encounter strange people, whatever it is. You do want to, up the intrigue and create interesting information and exceptional situations that are exciting, right? But start with something familiar so that you don't have to do those big expository dumps at the beginning, and people can focus on presenting their character and everybody getting at the table, getting to know each other, and getting hooked into the game. All right, next up. Have a moment for the characters to introduce themselves. This is pretty standard. I think almost everybody does this, but sometimes I played in games where, wham, you're out there in a dungeon. I don't even know who I'm in the dungeon with exactly. Who are these people? Why are we here? And I've played games where no one's introduced themselves for a while, and I just have to sort of intuit who these people. And so then in my imagination, it's like I've got stick figure companions to start the game with. I don't care for that so much. It takes me out of immersion. So I want to know early on who my friends are and where we're at. So just give a good moment for people, like, what does your character do on the way to work in the morning? Or you could say, okay, you're all coming into a bar to meet with a client. How are you dressed? So ask a simple question that can get the player started on describing themselves, a little goal to kind of focus the discussion. You don't want people's huge backstory or anything out. You want what they look like, generally who they are, what their attitude is, and then you're kind of good to go. And then just like the world building and the story, start with those familiar elements, and then we can build out a deeper understanding of each other's characters as the game plays. We don't need that beginning, but we need to fill in those blanks so we get those first impressions, right? My next tip is start with winning and then move into challenges. So the first kind of combat or the first puzzle or the first challenge that players are going to encounter in your adventure should be relatively easy to overcome. Something that they just need to make a decision, and almost any decision is going to work out all right. Or if it's combat, it's a relatively trivial combat where everybody gets to use a couple of different moves that they've got. Get familiar with the system. You can find out if anybody's having trouble overall with the mechanics of the game and work that out. There's not a lot of danger, and they're going to get a nice feeling of victory. Hey, we're pretty cool. Our characters are kind of cool. and then you can move into more challenging situations. And you can go to the challenge right on the second encounter or something like that, but you just want to get those sweet taste of victory, because that's one of the real highlights of any role-playing experience is I did something cool and I came out on top. So get that in real early, and then you can build out to the grindy challenges, and they're going to be wanting to get that hit of success again, and that's going to drive people forward, right, and get them enjoying the game. Next tip, set a clear initial direction for your game. Let people know where it's going. Are we going a merchant caravan? Are we going to stop a bank robbery? Are we counter-terrorists and we're investigating a terrorist conspiracy? Whatever it happens to be, try to lay that out for the players, because, role-playing games are cooperative. If the players don't know where you intend to lead the story, generally speaking, they're going to have a hard time following, and they're kind of going to be rattling around. But if you set up, you're in the cabin in the woods alone at night, and you're on $1 million dare to survive the night, everybody has an idea what's going on and what part that they want to play in that kind of a story, and it works out great. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have twists and the story can't reverse upon itself, but you need an initial direction that they can understand or they can get into. It could be a false premise as to what the overall adventure is about, but it needs to guide them in their initial actions. All right, next up, world building a little bit at a time. Us game masters would love to share with you all the incredible creative ideas that we have, all the amazing things that make our worlds unique, that's going to make the story unique. Great, but it's much better to reveal that layer by layer by layer, especially on a need-to-know basis, right? That's the top secret thing. We're going to reveal this information on a need-to-know. And that's just the best way to do world building. You want to incite people's curiosity about your world first, so leave some things unexplained, but have characters or events or objects or interactions that are cool and creative, and then people are naturally going to want to learn more about them. And as the players start to ask questions, or they have curiosity, you can see it in their eyes, or they start interacting with these things, then you can start to reveal a little bit more information. Or you meet an NPC and you go, oh, he's part of this organization, and then at that moment is a good time to reveal to the players what their characters would know about this organization and the world. So obviously the characters know about the world that they live in, the players might not. So don't just dump all that information on them. Feed it out a little bit at a time. All right. Finally, because this is about pacing, you do want to let players pause. So the beginning of the game should be very engaging for those introductory scenes and everything. You don't want a really slow start. Right? Get people going, get the action going, have some kind of conflict to resolve. And then you can let the players breathe a little bit, especially after like a second encounter or a second challenge or something like that. Let them rattle around, let them role play a little bit, but don't let them stall out. So if the table goes quiet, or if people are unsure what to do, don't just sit there and twiddle your thumbs and wait for them to figure it out or go, come on, guys. You really want to be active as a storyteller, and maybe it's time to drop in an NPC, it's time to have a little hint. Don't tell them what to do. Don't insult their intelligence or anything like that. But at that point, if the table's starting to go quiet, they're going to be looking for a sense of direction. So that's when you kind of put on your subtle storytelling hat and try to figure out a way that you can get them pointed in the right direction where they still have their own agency, right? So pause, but not stall. So those are all my tips on adventure pacing for this week. I hope you find them useful. All right. What have I been playing for games this week? I played Old School Essentials just a little bit earlier today before recording this video. That's my local play group. I had a good time with that. We were doing an adventure a second time. It was the same adventure. I had made some comments the first time we played it about the opening encounter. I was asked if I had such comments. He felt like he had made some improvements, and indeed he had. It was quite a bit better the second time. We had a lot more to do in the encounter as players. We had a lot more impact on what happened. There was a nice little combat, and there was a cool bit of investigation. Before, it was kind of a chase scene, but the chase needed to have the bad guy get away. So in a sense, we weren't really able to have an effect and still have the plot carry forward. So this gave us stuff to do. The bad guy still gets away, but we had other things to interact with and ways that we could resolve the encounter and discover the information that we need to find out where they went. So yeah, it was much better. A nice little adventure scenario. Had a good time with it. Then I've also been playing Dungeons & Dragons Online. The Chill of Ravenloft expansion is now live. The adventures are out there. The character classes that came with it, or I should say the race, which is a Dhampir, half vampire character, came out. Already made a couple characters for it, but now the adventures are there. It's pretty cool. It's a Ravenloft thing set in, I'm not big on my Ravenloft lore, a little bit more of a sort of industrial age world where there are factories and museums, kind of Victorian age, and people are wearing the kind of Victorian clothing. I didn't see any guns or really high technology stuff, but they've got relatively modern looking fishing vessels and stuff like that. And the story involved a lot of Frankenstein like automatons, flesh columns, and things. So it's interesting in that it's a little bit less of fantasy than anything else in Dungeons and Dragons Online at the moment, even though the base setting Eberron has sort of magitech elements in it. Those feel very fantastical, and this looks like you would imagine 1800s London to look in terms of the textures and building designs and that kind of thing. I had a good time with it. It was pretty fun. I've done all of the adventures in the pack so far. I think there's a raid coming for it, but that's not out yet. I don't often do the raids in Dungeons & Dragons Online. They're best done with a bunch of people, and I tend to play by myself a lot. But I enjoyed the plot. The thing that I enjoyed most in the new expansion were the creature designs. There's some Grek creatures, which are like weird serpents with multiple tentacles and things. They're pretty cool. There were like floating brains in a jar. That was pretty fun. My favorite, there's a giant hydra that you can fight in the wilderness area. And as you do damage to the hydra, its heads fall off. And then the heads turn into independent serpents, and you have to fight those as well and get rid of those. And then that happens a bunch of times because it's got a lot of heads. That is pretty cool. That was one of the coolest monsters in DDO that I fought. And there were just a lot of other little monsters. There's a new Spectre that has really great animation and graphic design. It's very spooky looking. I don't know if it's better than the old Spectres, but the old Spectres are more sort of like shadowy shrouds with eyes, and these definitely have a ghostly form, like a undead wizard or something that's been reanimated. I thought they were really neat. They didn't do a lot of really interesting effects on me or anything, so there was a little bit less like these enemies are posing really cool new types of threats to the character. But they had great animations, they look really cool, they feel very appropriate for the setting, and I had a lot of fun fighting them. Even in a sense, I mean, the Hydra's heads fall off and attack you. Is that a new mechanic? Kind of. It's aesthetics. They could have just spawned, mini monsters in there or something, and they would have done the same thing. But the way it happens tells more of a story, feels cool, and is just like really good monster design. So I give it a thumbs up. I like it a lot. There's a lot of lag in the game right now because the move to 64-bit servers has not gone as well as they would have liked. But I find the game playable most of the time, and when it's not playable, I just log out and play something else. Since I don't play all the time, it's not a big deal for me, but it's definitely been a problem in the game. Maybe not the best time to try out DDO. Wait until they get that sorted out, but it's a great game. I really like it. Nomad Ann, my lovely wife, on her Twitch channel, has been playing Conrad Stevenson's Paranormal PI. That's quite a mouthful. And that is ongoing. Still playing it and will be playing it this coming week as well. Some folks from the Discord have stopped by and say hi, so I appreciate that. Do keep my wife company and help her build her channel. That would be great. She's having a great time streaming and is getting really comfortable with it and getting a regular set of followers. So it's a good time if you want to check it out. We'll have a link in the show notes down there. Also in the notes for the show is a link to the landing page for Shotgun Fantasy. We have a little mailing list. So if you want to sign up and get notified when you can start to buy things or when more stuff is available, let us know. It won't be very spammy. There won't be a whole lot of emails, but we want to be able to let people know when you can buy it and where you can buy it and that kind of thing. So that's what's going on there. Life in general, not a whole lot to report. It was almost a normal week at the gift shop, so it only took me like half a day to recover from my work week. I did work some extra hours. I'm probably not working any extra hours this week, or at least I'm not scheduled to. And we're coming into the last weeks of summer here, so things are going to get quiet. Got a new winter schedule. It's going to be lighter, give me more time to work on the business. A little bit less money, but we'll see about that. I do potentially have a new writing contract, freelance writing contract that might come in. Not guaranteed yet, not signed on the dotted line, but the general outline has been offered and we agreed on some terms, so that's pretty cool. That will make me very busy, but it'll also be a really nice source of income. And we'll talk about it if it actually happens, and I can talk about it. We'll see. Sometimes on those contracts, I don't want you talking about it, so we'll see how it goes. It was a cool opportunity. I'm looking forward to it. Trying to get back into writing mode here, but that should be pretty easy to do pretty soon. When I have to work a lot, then I get backed up on all the little things that need to happen, just emails and stuff that needs to get sent. And so I got to get all that cleared out, and then I can sit down and do serious writing. And I've just had a really good time gaming this week. I got to play in 2 RPGs and do a little bit of video gaming, and also the playtests. And I really love running playtests, actually. I had a great time playing Everyday Heroes and running my little adventure. I will try to make that adventure available to everybody along with Shotgun Fantasy when it comes out. It still needs a little bit of refining and writing up, because like I said, it was written originally as a 4E adventure, so I got to change some of the nomenclature and just clean it up and take it up to a little bit higher professional standard, since it was just written for some convention runs, and usually I cut some corners for something like that. So, but we'll get it ready. I think it's pretty fun to run and easy to run, and pretty creative for a first level adventure, if I do say so. Usually first level adventures, the fights can feel kind of perfunctory, but I like to just sort of dial up the excitement and introduce some weird stuff, and actually some complex combat mechanics, but do them in a way that they're not overly threatening for low-level characters. I don't know. It worked out in play, so hopefully we can look forward to that as well. All right, that's it that I've got for this week. I hope you guys all have a wonderful week, and we will see you next week when we get to, it'll be week 30. I've been thinking I should maybe change up the formula a little bit on these diaries somehow, or snazz them up, but I'm not sure I'm going to have time to do that by week 30, but maybe week 31? I don't know. We'll see. It's something I'm thinking about. So if you have suggestions for things you'd like to see in this weekly format, let me know. Things that you want to hear about with the company, or that you want to hear about for gaming tips, that kind of thing, let me know. I am finding it a little harder to do game design tip of the week because I'm starting to run short on subjects. But there's always something happening that I can talk about, so I will endeavor to continue, of course. I've really enjoyed doing these very much, and even though it takes a little bit of time from other things, it helps ground me, and it helps keep me kind of on a regular path and a regular commitment to the company and to you guys, the fans. So please let me know anything you'd like to see, any changes there. That would make me very happy. Or if you're just like, hey, just give me more of the same thing, then you will get more of the same thing. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Take care.